Technology Office in the Pentagon, and he's the guy who came out with a book on the 50th anniversary of Roswell. He said, I saw that stuff. We had it in a couple of file cabinets, and he personally took it to Bell Labs, claims to have given them the chips that inspired the later work. A lot of people don't find him credible, that he takes too much credit for doing all kinds of other things in history. But I met him before his book came out years ago, and Bigelow and Hal Puthoff and those guys went back to see him, and Jacques Vallée, and they thought he was credible. They didn't necessarily believe everything he said, but it goes right along the lines of what you're saying there.
And so what did he describe that he saw in those file cabinets?
He said fiber optics, computer chips, among other things. I think he said night vision was inspired by something they got out of those chips. Out of those ships.
I have no idea. It's like it would be so cool it would be so cool if we had success in derivative technologies and they were in our hands. I think I would like to believe we're more responsible with that shit. I know for a fact that, and George can attest to this, that the UFO topic is taken at the level of above weapons of mass destruction within our government, within government agencies. Like, they take it that seriously. So that is not a throwaway statement. I'm telling you, I know that. And George can attest to it, right? So here's the deal, man. If that's true, then I do understand the perspective. Whoever gets the technology first wins. But my understanding is that we have not been able to duplicate the core technologies. And if that's true, because it's so far ahead of what we've got, what we can do is kind of like get derivative technologies. All you have to know is what the legislation that was put into the National Defense Authorization Act. I know that's not a word that normal people are going to understand or hear about often, but I've become educated on it. So the National Defense Authorization Act of 2024, it ends up being signed, hopefully, by Biden. Any president has to sign it. And also the Intelligence Authorization Act. So the language that they put into these is all people need to know, because they wouldn't fabricate this out of thin air, and they wouldn't spend resources on creating this language if they didn't have more than a good suspicion that we have this kind of tech and that we're trying to reverse engineer it. It's online. Anybody can look at. Schumer, I think, put out a big bill, and then there was an amendment to it. And if you read this language, they're like, any of these non-terrestrial craft, they are so thorough. They're like, if they're being hidden in private technology, we're cutting off your funding. So they've got a carrot and a stick approach. I've talked to some of the people that formed this language, right? So what they're saying is, the carrot is, if you come forward within, I think, 90 days, once it's signed, and you tell us that you have technologies that are not from here, then there'll be no penalty to you. If you don't tell us, your funding is cut. We're going to find out. Your funding is cut. So it's like a carrot and a stick kind of thing. If you read this language, it's almost insane to read, because they know that there are these programs. Now, where the craft or things that they're working on are from, how do we even get there to know that? I don't know. But they do know that we have this shit, these craft of unknown origin.
They use the term non-human intelligence in that legislation 26 times. It's astonishing. There's this Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, standing up there in a nod to his late mentor, Harry Reid, saying we're going to get to the bottom of this stuff, and it's real. And he acknowledges that that legislation was crafted with the White House's cooperation. So it's the Biden administration, somebody in that administration signed off on this. It's astonishing.
People don't like it, though. Like, if you're in the IC and you've got these like secret programs or if you're like, let's say with Lockheed, let's say you're Lockheed and you got some really cool thing, they might be looking to move it now, because I don't think they're really worried about funding being cut off. I think a lot of these black programs can be funded asymmetrically, like in different ways than getting money right from Congress. But I'll tell you, that language tells you everything, because it shows you that they are taking it so seriously that they have some sort of pre-knowledge that these programs exist. In fact, they probably know where these objects are being stored. Now, you said some number. You and I might talk to similar people, but definitely that number's floated around. I have no idea if that's the correct number. I just know that they have been told where these holding facilities are. They have been told. All they got to do is get the authority to go knock on that door and go inside.